Hey y'all, it's Zach with Deck the Home. You know, a bountiful fall wreath is the perfect way to welcome guests to your home this fall season. Come on inside and I'll show you how you can make one. All right, so we're going to be making a really unique wreath today for fall. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do for fall this year, and I decided I did not want a traditional fall wreath, which typically consists of leaves and pumpkins and pine cones. I wanted to do something a little bit different. So what I've come up with is an apple picking, apple spice kind of wreath. So to start off with, we're going to be building our wreath today on a grapevine base. This is an 18-inch base. These are very easy to find. You can find them at your local craft store, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, wherever you shop. You can typically find these. They're pretty inexpensive. And then starting over here, I have some various fall leaves. I'm going to be using maple leaves today because we have maple trees in the yard, and I really like to use things that are kind of around us in nature so that the wreath looks a little bit more real. I have a bush here of medium-sized apples. I have some smaller apples, which came in a bag. I have some cinnamon sticks that we're going to be using to kind of put into the wreath. I picked these up at Hobby Lobby. I have some larger apples here, which I purchased, and with these, I've kind of prepped them to be able to stick into the wreath. Have more leaves. I have some beautiful hydrangeas. My original idea was to use dried hydrangeas, but I decided that was probably a bad idea. I have some orange and yellow berries here, which I picked up at Michael's as well. And then I also have some mums. So I have this smaller mum that's got a little bit of orange in it, kind of picks up the orange from the berries a little bit, if you can kind of see that. So I think that'll be a really pretty combination. And then I also have some larger mums. Let me grab those. I have so much stuff here. When I buy wreaths, I buy a lot of stuff. So these are the larger mums that I might use as well. So a lot of different materials to use in the wreath. May use all of it, may use some of it, we don't know. We'll see what we make. I also have some paddle wire here, so I'm going to be using this to attach things and kind of tie things together. And then I also have a larger 16 gauge wire that I cut in half, and that is what I used. I just stuck it in the bottom of these apples and turned them into picks. And I just put a little hot glue there on the bottom just so that the wire stays in place and I can kind of stick it throughout the wreath once we get there. So that is everything. So let's get started. All right, so to get started, we've got our base here, and we're gonna start by adding some of our foliage around the wreath. So for this wreath, I'm gonna cover the whole thing because I really want a full bountiful wreath. I love covering the whole thing for fall. I think it just adds to the bounty, and we have a lot of different elements, so I wanna be able to include those. So again, I'm using an 18-inch wreath base. The reason I'm using an 18-inch wreath is because once we add our elements to it, the finished product will be somewhere around 22, maybe 24 inches, depending on how far the leaves kind of hang over the sides. So that's why I went with an 18-inch base. If you have a larger front door or a larger area, you certainly can go bigger. But for me, this was kind of the perfect size that would allow the front door to also shine as well. So I have some different leaves here. Some of these I just bought in a bush. So I'm gonna pull some of these out. And I'm just gonna be sticking things in. I'm not gonna be hot gluing things. The reason why is, unfortunately here in Virginia and on our front door, the sun kind of beats down on it and things tend to fade sometimes. So, you know, a wreath might last 2 years if we're lucky, and then it needs to be kind of refreshed. So by not gluing things in, I can reutilize my base and I can just pull the faded stuff out. So I'm just kind of going in, I'm adding the different leaves. I'm using green leaves for this versus kind of a bright orange because here in Virginia, our fall doesn't really peak until like in mid to end October. So the leaves stay green pretty much all of what most people consider fall, I feel like. And I really like the green when it contrasts with the apples. I think it'll be a really catching display. So again, I'm just going around the wreath. I'm just sticking these in, and once we get all the elements on there, the wreath itself, the vines of the wreath, and all the stuff that we add are just gonna hold everything in place. So you don't have to worry about hot glue. I hate hot glue. I always burn my fingers, and I have little like hot glue cobwebs everywhere. If you've worked with hot glue before, you know what I'm talking about. It's just not fun. So again, just tucking these in. And I'm angling them out. I don't know if you can kind of see that a little bit, but I'm angling them kind of outward a little bit more. And that'll just help give the wreath a little bit more dimension, make it a little bit wider than the 18-inch wreath base that we have here. And I don't like the way that looks. If you find something that you don't like the way it looks, just pick another piece up and come back to that piece, you know? It's just like a trial and error sometimes of what looks good, what doesn't look good. And so again, I'm just sticking this into the wreath base, kind of getting it in there, giving it a good tug. I've got these brown leaves that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and this one still has the tag on it. Make sure you remove your tags. There's nothing tackier than a tag. And again, just coming in, just kind of tucking that in between the wires. And just a little tip, because I didn't know this the first time I made a wreath, and my mother got really mad at me. Put something down, especially if you're not working on a craft table, like a heavy towel or an old throw or something. Something that will just protect your work surface. The wreaths are natural material. They can scratch surfaces. You're also working with wires and things, so it can get kind of scratchy if you're not careful. So, and I'm using a stem for this versus a bush. You can buy bushes, they're very economical, but I couldn't find green leaves in a bush, so I found this. And I'm just cutting it into smaller pieces. So I'll probably get like 4 or 5 pieces out of a stem, which is really nice. So I'm gonna come down here with this. I need something down here. And I'm just kind of moving around my wreath. That's all I'm doing. I want some of these leaves kind of hanging off to the side a little bit. And you don't have to make it too dense at this point. I know this is kind of a little bit more dense than what I was imagining when I started, but we're gonna be adding so many different elements to this. So don't feel like you have to cover the whole thing just yet. We're gonna be adding flowers and apples and all sorts of really awesome things. So I'm gonna skip around a little bit and stick some different things in there. And because all of this is wired, you can kind of move it around and manipulate it how you want to so that it goes, you know, perfectly. And I'm gonna use one of these brown leaves, maybe over here. All right, so now we've got our wreath base kind of covered. There's still some loose areas in here, which that's okay. We're gonna be adding a lot more elements to this. So we kind of want that so we can get in there and add those extra elements, but we've got a nice covering. Again, they're kind of hanging over the side, which is going to give us that extra shape. So the next thing that we want to add is our hydrangeas. And I have 3 of these that I'm going to be using in this wreath. And these are actually from the spring section at Michael's, oddly enough, which is a great thing, you know, if you're out shopping and you can find stuff on sale to use in projects, it's really great. So I got these like 80% off. They were like $2. And they're a little stiff, so sometimes I have to bend them, bend the break. There we go. So, and they have that dried texture. Like I said, I originally was gonna use dried hydrangeas, and then after I dried them, I realized probably a little too fragile for the front porch, seeing that it isn't covered. So I found these, and I think they're a good substitute. So I'm gonna stick one of them kind of right there and nestle it into the leaves a little bit. And then I'm gonna flip this so I can kind of see what I'm doing. Let's see. I think I'm gonna do another one, maybe right there. And I'm just kind of playing around with this a little bit. You know, I can kind of fluff things and adjust things to kind of get everything to work in my favor. Grab another one of these hydrangeas. Again, take the tags off. Nobody wants to see the tags. I need better wire cutters. I'll put that on my list for Santa this year. Santa, need new wire cutters. Again, if you have problems, just kind of cut it and bend it like I'm doing. Ah, there we go. So since I have 3, I'm gonna kind of go in a triangle. So I'm gonna go like maybe right here with one. And things look better in odd numbers. That's just a rule. So when you're buying things for projects, you always want to buy things in odd numbers, 3s, 5s, 7s. That's just an art thing. I don't know who created the rules, but it works. It's visually more appealing. So buy things in odd numbers. All right, so now we've got our hydrangeas in there. We've got our leaves. The next thing that I'm gonna add is our large apples. I wanna start adding those in now. So I have these large apples. I actually bought these from Amazon, and I love how fresh they look. They kind of look like you just went to the grocery store and bought some apples. They didn't come with a stick in them, so this is a 16 gauge floral wire, excuse me, and I just stuck it in here. This is styrofoam, and I put a little bit of hot glue just to make sure that they weren't going to go anywhere. And the nice thing about this is you can manipulate the wire and kind of bend it and get it to do what you want it to do and kind of be the angle that you want it to be. So I'm just going to stick these into our base. Maybe I made the wire too long, but I'm just going to nestle that into some leaves there. I have 8 of these, so I'm going to do another one kind of right here. And I'm going to pair these up because 2 is always fun. Just kind of stagger them a little bit, get it in there. See how pretty that is. All right, now I'm gonna hop over here, do another one. Maybe do a single one right here. And again, if the apple's just not the way you want it, you've got it on this wire and you can bend it and get it kind of nestled in there. If you find it's not staying where you want it to, let me hop over here and do this one. And I'm just, again, sticking stuff in. The wreath base itself is gonna hold everything in. If it doesn't, we have our paddle wire. But I usually have pretty good luck getting the wreath base to kind of hold the different elements. Okay, so we're tucking our apples in here and there and everywhere. We have more apples too. This is gonna be like a whole apple wreath. It's gonna be super yummy. You know what they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That should keep the doctor away all year. All right. Got our large apples in now, and look how pretty that looks. So you've got all the different colors, and I just clustered these together. I have 2 more large apples. I don't think I'm gonna use them because I have so many different things that I wanna add to this wreath. I think it might be a little too much. So the next thing I wanna do is add the red flowers. So I wanna kind of go back in and add the mums, and I think I'm gonna go with the small ones. The big ones are really big, and I like the orange tone in these smaller ones. So let me show you how I'm gonna do this. These are on a bush. I'm just gonna cut them off. These wire cutters work pretty good for this. And then what I like to do is I like to take, you can kind of slide the green pieces up a little bit so it kind of doesn't get lost in the wreath. I'm gonna cut one more of these actually. And then I like to cluster things, especially smaller things like this, because you get just a really cute little arrangement. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my paddle wire here and roll it off. Don't need a whole lot, we're just gonna twist these together. So a small piece, kind of cluster our flowers a little bit. You can make them kind of different heights or whatever. And then twist that around the stems so they kind of hold up. They kind of hold their shape. It's just gonna make you a nice little pick to put into go all the way down the length of the stems of these. And that way you can stick them in and they don't like go every which way. All right, almost done. Last bit of wire is always the worst. All right, so we're just gonna bend this a little bit. We're gonna bend this out. And we bend things because things aren't like perfectly straight in nature. So when you go out and you walk through your garden, like things aren't just growing straight usually, unless you're got stakes or tie your stuff up. And the way it probably does, but most things, at least most things in our yard, don't grow straight. So stick that in there. And the more leaves you get, sometimes it's like, where'd they go? All right, so you can spread those out a little bit, and then maybe I'll do a single one kind of here and there. So just adds a little bit of variety to the wreath. Okay, and again, I'm just gonna push that up and stick that right there. And you wanna go, not only in the middle, but on the edge as well. So have flowers and things all over your wreath. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just going around the wreath and adding different elements. I'm bouncing around a little bit here and there. I go in between the apples and add something. This is a really pretty combination. I've been thinking about this wreath for a while, honestly, and kind of what inspired me was, again, like I said, I didn't want a standard fall wreath, but if you go to Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg down in Virginia, at Christmas, they use apples in their wreath, and they're really, really pretty. They use evergreens and magnolias, and I love the look of them. And I thought, what if you did that, but you did it with fall? Like, that would be really fun. So that's what we're doing. So now we've got our hydrangeas in, we've got our apples in, our large apples, and it's looking pretty good, I think. So now we're gonna add some other elements. More stuff. So I have these kind of medium apples, and I also have these little apples. So the little apples, I did the exact same thing I did with the large apples. I just took a piece of floral wire, stuck it in, and put a little bit of hot glue so it just wouldn't fall off. So I'm gonna stick those in. Okay, so now we've got our floral in place, we've got our leaves in place, we've got our large apples. This is really starting to look really full. But we have a few more elements that we want to add. So the next thing that I want to add, I think, is some of these like medium-sized apples. Again, I just really want this to be full of apples. Like we went to the orchard and just picked them. One of my favorite things when I was in school was we would go to the apple orchard. It was a field trip every year, and we would do hay rides and get to like bring home apples, and it was really always really fun. It was like a way to kick off fall. So this wreath kind of reminds me of that a little bit. All right, so that's a few of those. I might go back in and add some more later. The next thing that I want to add is the spice to this wreath, and that is cinnamon sticks. These are craft cinnamon sticks. You can pick these up at Hobby Lobby. They're actually in the Christmas section, not the fall section, but they smell like cinnamon. They have that wonderful smell, and I think it's just gonna add a nice earthy texture to all of this. So I'm just gonna tie these in. They come not pre-tied. I just took some floral wire, wrapped it around it, and I'm just gonna go in, I think, in a couple places and insert these. So I'm thinking like right here might be a good spot. I think I'm gonna do one like over here with those apples, and maybe one right here with these. So let me spin this way. And I love just putting things in clusters like this, where you have the apples and the cinnamon sticks together. It just makes a big impact, especially when you have something large like this hydrangea. Just clustering things, smaller things, kind of make a bigger impact and balance out the larger elements. Beautiful. So now we've got our cinnamon sticks in there. We've got our spice or our apple spice. And I think the last thing that I want to add is these berries. And these I bought at Michael's. They come already kind of bundled like this. I think it's just going to tie in a little bit of the orange leaves, a little bit of the orange that you see in those smaller mums, and just give you that little touch of fall. You're probably wondering, like I am at this point, where is he gonna put it? Let's figure it out. All right, so let's put this kind of right there. I'm just kind of working these in a little bit. You know, I don't want them to be like a centerpiece, but I definitely just want a little bit of a different texture in there. So I think that'll work really nicely. And you can shape these a little bit too if you want them to be a little bit more natural. So let's see, I've got one there. Need one like right here. Spin your wreath around. And then let's do one like right here with all of this. Or they're still right here. All right, so we have added all of our elements into our wreath now, and I think this looks really, really good. Probably give it a final fluff once I get it on the door, maybe adjust a few things depending on how it hangs, but I'm really, really happy with the way it looks. It's very full, it's very fresh, I have a lot of different textures, a lot of different colors, and it says fall without just the typical pumpkin spice and everything nice approach. So I really, really like this. I think it's a nice, elegant way to welcome people to your home. So I hope this video inspires you to make something for your own front door this fall season. And please share it with me on Instagram at DeckTheHomeVA. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to this video for more fall content this season.